Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, where we will discuss about artificial intelligence, a very hot and very interesting topic, as you will agree. But today we are going to look at it from the perspective of its role in both breaking stereotypes, while at the same time, if not managed properly, reinforcing inequalities. Artificial intelligence is often presented as neutral, objective, and purely technical. Yet research and real-world experience, as we know, increasingly show that AI systems, like any other human-made system, reflect data, assumptions, and values of the societies that create them, including existing gender biases and inequalities. Today's session is designed as a peer learning space. We are not here to provide final answers, of course, but to explore perspectives together, from industry and regional practice to international development, to AI governance and ethics with our last speaker. We will hear from three speakers today. I'm very delighted that they took the time and join us for our today's webinar. I will be moderating this session, but we will be talking from different lenses when it comes to AI, stereotypes, and inequalities. At the end, we will have a short moderated discussion, so please post your questions using the available chat and QA functions of the Zoom call, and we will try to make us take as many as possible after the presentations. So, not to waste a lot of time, I would like to move on to our first speaker. Allow me to introduce our first speaker for today, Sofia Jovanovska, the general manager of a renowned IT company, Scale Focus, North Macedonia, an engineer and a professional with more than 30 years of experience across business, chambers of commerce, and public institutions. A very diverse experience, and the right person to talk today about AI and inequalities and how we can make things better. In her presentation today, Sofia will challenge us. She will explore something that she calls a decision infrastructure. So we are very looking forward to it. A system that quietly shapes how society understands gender roles, leadership, and opportunity. She will highlight how invisible bias becomes dangerous, precisely because it feels neutral. Those are the most dangerous things. And why small stereotypes, when scaled through AI systems, can multiply into structural inequality. Sofia, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you in our peer learning webinar, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gabi. Thank you for your invitation, and I'm really glad that I will be part of this webinar. And just a technical assistance, I will ask to share my presentation. Okay, let's start. Just I'll give the comments for the next slide, please. And good morning or good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. I think it will be a very interesting webinar. And to start, I would like to ask you, please write in the chat one thing as answer on these questions. Who used AI in the last 24 hours? This is good for the start of the webinar, yes. Why ask this question? This is important because today we'll not speak about AI only as a technology. Today we'll speak about AI as a decision infrastructure. You can remember this terminology, decision infrastructure. And we'll speak about AI as a social system, because something that slowly but powerfully shapes how we use the world, roles, opportunities in our society. And my name is Sofia Jovanovska, and for 3 decades I have worked in the intersection of technology, business, public policy, with many experience in the many different organizations. And from this perspective, I can say clearly that generative AI is not just another IT tool, it's a mechanism that scales our assumptions. From this position today, we'll discuss a topic that is not talked about openly enough, and I think that you will agree with me, that gender stereotypes in generative AI and what we as a region can do about it. It's very important to emphasize. Next slide, please. I will share several examples so we can reach conclusions more easily in this way. And we often hear AI is objective, but is it true? Let me ask you some questions. Can something that learned from people be more objective than people? In my career, whether working with companies in the Chamber of Commerce or institutions like government, I saw one rule again and again. It's the same rule. And this rule is very important to says every system carries the mindset of the people who built it. It's the same everything in different institution, in different organization. And now what you can see, AI learns from the internet, from text, from documents, from media, from us. And those sources were created in societies with historical inequalities. So in many cases, AI does not discover threat. It reproduces the dominant norm that already exists in our society. And idea is the foundation for everything that follow on the next slide that I will share with you. UNESCO did something very important. I hope Alexander will speak more about this after me. But UNESCO measured bias. The analysis show a clear pattern. You can see on the slide that women appear 4 times more often in the domestic roles. Men appear much more often next to the words like career, leaders, salary, profit, and something else. This is not opinions. This is a statistical patterns. There is not ideological claims also. They are models created from millions of data points with AI. And now I will ask you, if a young girl reads AI-generated text every day, with what message does she receive about what she will become? Innovator, entrepreneur, leader, or only someone who stay at home? And this is very important because it's happened with silent influence. It's a massive, and it's automated. And why this invisible bias is the most dangerous? Let me take you in another real situation. Next slide, please. Let me take into one real situation, a management meeting, hybrid format, maybe some people in the room, others online. And on the table, they have new AI system to support decision-making process in the organization. And what's happened? In the first minute, everyone is impressed. You can see charts, predictions, confident languages. But in some moment, someone says a sentence that I have heard many times. And this sentence is, let's see what the model says. And this moment, the conversation stops. And all participants of the meeting confirm. And nobody asked next questions. What data did the model learn from? Was it tested for bias? Does it systematically exclude someone? And only one question remains. What does the model say? This is the moment that really worries me. Not when AI makes some obvious mistakes with some numbers or some daily things, but when it looks calm, reasonable, statistical, and therefore become the norm. Invisible bias is the dangerous because it does not offend, it does not shock it does not shout. It quietly enters in everyday our life, in the sentence we read daily, in the recommendation that we accept without resistance, in decision that we look rational. And let me say this clearly. When you stop asking the questions, we have already given power to this system. This is the very important to remember. And if we are honest, this is not technical discussion. It's a leadership discussion, because the leadership starts exactly when someone says, before we continue, how do you know this is the fair and accurate. And the next slide, please. How we can make something about this issue. Let me bring you into another familiar scene, a presentation of new AI tools in the large organization or in the company. And you can see in the shiny slides, impressive demo. And then the engineers will proudly say this sentence: this can generate tens of thousands of text every day. And the audience confirm. And now just think, tens of thousands from the same logic. In IT, we call this term scaling. Scale means efficiency it means the business advantage. But in a society, scale means something else. It means multiplying values. A stereotype that one person may pass to 10 people, AI can pass to millions every day without rest, without authority of technology, with authority of technology, and every day it's grow. In society, the sounds like this: small bias multiplied by 1 million interactions is equal to structural injustice. This is very dangerous. So this is not a debate about where AI is useful. It's about what exactly is being scaled and what consequences become the rule. Next slide, please. I'll focus just on the next slide, please, on the Western Balkan. In the Western Balkan, we often says we are behind Western Europe, but in numbers maybe, but in the policy now, especially about AI, we delay. And this delay can also be an opportunity for us if we use to ask better questions than others asked at the beginning. And now the region is in the phase that building the AI frameworks. That means that choices we make today will become infrastructure for the next decade. And if the Western Balkans is shaping AI in the digital policy now, then we are not only users, we are framework designers. This is very important how we design AI. And the question is, will we be passive followers or advanced designers? And the next slide, please. Finally, no single sector can solve this alone. What is the problem? When you make the sum analysis, more than 70% of the public AI systems in Europe come from the private companies. I mean about the language learning model. That means that the public interest depends directly on the private design. And AI is slowly becoming infrastructure. But infrastructure is never built by one actor. It needs regulators who understand technology, the industry that accepts responsibility, researchers who measure impact, and the civil society that watches real-world effects. When someone says we have a choice, technology moves forward, that we have no choice, the technology moves forward. But always, I will say, we do not have a choice, but we have choice. Technology does not move by itself. People design it, and leaders approve it, and institutions regulate it. The companies scale it. This is very important to remember. And so the questions I want to leave with you after this webinar is not whether we'll use AI, but how we'll use. And the next slide, please. Instead of conclusion, I will ask you the next questions. When you approve the next AI system, what exactly will build into it? Speed or values? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sofia. Thank you very much once again. It's always a pleasure to discuss with you, and for reminding us that AI does not simply reflect reality. It can actively scale stereotypes, especially when we stop asking all those critical questions, like the one that you just left us with at the end. It would be great if we can have both speed and values. But you know better. You're a practitioner in that field, and you know better that sometimes people opt for speed in these competitive systems. So thank you very much. I'm sure there are already some questions. Feel free to, if you want, you can answer them in the Q&A function, but of course we will at the end also reflect on some of them. So now we will move from this leadership and regional perspective to a global and institutional one, looking at what policy frameworks and international cooperation can do to ensure that digital transformation benefits everyone. So I'm very happy that as our second speaker, we have another colleague of mine, Alexander Filipovsky. He is the project administrator at UNIDO. I hope I got that one right, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. And he is, as you can imagine, coming from the division on digital transformation and artificial intelligence. So the right person to speak about what are the international initiatives supporting AI that UNIDO is doing. Alexander is involved in Industry 4.0 and is responsible AI adoption across regions, different regions, including our Western Balkans regions, but also Armenia, Tajikistan, and the BRICS countries. So in his presentation, we are looking forward to see the key policy areas of actions from gender-responsive innovation strategies to multi-stakeholder partnerships. And I'm very glad that we will also be hearing about the UNIDO's Global Alliance on AI for Industry and Manufacturing, which is a platform that supports this inclusive AI ecosystem, something that we would like to highlight in our peer learning webinar. So Alexander, thank you very much. We are very pleased that you were able to join, and I now invite you to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. It is always a pleasure. Good morning, everybody. Please, if you can share my presentation. Thank you. I will try to manage in 15 minutes. What I'm going to talk about, next slide, please, is I'm going to tackle on two initiatives that UNIDO has done in this area. The first one is global research on gender, digital transformation, and artificial intelligence. And as Gabriela already announced, a really practical initiative for engaging with many stakeholders, which is the Global Alliance on AI for Industry and Manufacturing. I would just begin with a sentence that digital technologies have the potential to create opportunities for women to lead, participate, and benefit from technology developments. However, without the right policy enablers, initiatives, and projects, digital technologies can also reinforce gender stereotypes and even deepen economic and social inclusion. Next slide, please. I will not go into all these findings. You can also, of course, take a look at the report. But what I'm gonna just briefly inform you what it tackles is, of course, the main issue that it analyzes is the gender gap. And we all know that women face persistent barriers as users, learners, and developers of digital technologies. And digital access, skills, and leadership gaps are wider in AI and emerging technologies. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know, accelerated digitalization, however, benefits have been unevenly distributed. This also poses a lot of opportunities and risks. And why this matters is that closing gender gaps is a human rights imperative and an economic opportunity, of course. Benefits include expanded markets, innovation, productivity, and reduced skills shortages. The research also tackles many technologies, aligned with Industry 4.0, from artificial intelligence to cybersecurity to robotics. And it concludes with 8 key areas of action to advance gender equality in digital transformation. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, I will just briefly mention some of the findings as regards to the state of women's participation in the digital transformation, as regards to digital access and the connectivity gaps. Just to highlight, fewer women than men use internet globally. The global gender gap in internet use was 8.4% in 2022. And of course, the gap is nearly 4 times wider in least developed countries. As regards to mobile phone ownership, the women are less likely to own a mobile phone, and the widest gaps are in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. As regards to digital skills gaps, women have near parity in basic digital skills. However, there are larger gaps in advanced skills and especially programming. Next slide, please. What I would also like to highlight is that women's graduation rates do not always translate into employment, which means, for example, if you take Turkey as an example, a high women graduates, but only 19% labor participation. Whereas if we take Switzerland, we have low women graduates, but nearly 27% of labor participation, which highlights gender norms and stereotypes. As regards to women in digital workforce, the findings are that women represent 1/3 of science and engineering professionals globally. And as regards to leadership and decision making, this is also very interesting, is that women hold nearly 20% of leadership roles in manufacturing and energy. And to company boards, as regards to company boards, approximately 20% of women are board members, but even less than 10% or approximately 7% are board chairs. There is some progress since 2016, but gaps remain significant. Next slide, please. Just to highlight, women's board participation increased from 3 to 12 percentage points since 2016 to 2021 across regions. Next slide, please. Here we see the barriers to the participation of women in digital transformation, and this figure highlights several categories. And as we can see, those are divided to barriers and opportunities from digital transformation. The focus advanced digital technologies are those aligned with Industry 4.0, and this figure categorizes women as technology users, technology learners, technology developers as employees, but also technology learners as entrepreneurs. I invite you once again to take a look at the report and see what the findings showcase. Next slide, please. Also like to highlight that a number of initiatives promoting the participation of women in digital technology have been analyzed in the frame of this research based on desk research, submission of inputs from international civil society organizations. We have also conducted interviews and developed case studies of good practices. So the findings are that women as technology users are underrepresented. There is limited focus on technology adoption, and entrepreneurship support is incomplete. There is also narrow technology focus, which means that initiatives mainly emphasize programming and computing, and nearly 50% of skills initiatives for women focus on these areas. Next slide, please. Now, maybe more towards what the research findings are as relate to artificial intelligence, which is the main topic of today's webinar. I will discuss the main risks associated with artificial intelligence. Some of the ideas were also shared by Sofje, with a particular focus on bias and discrimination. While AI offers major opportunities across many sectors, it also raises serious ethical and social concerns. These risks are not accidental, but they are often a result of how AI systems are designed, trained, and deployed with existing social structures. AI works by identifying patterns and connections of data. So algorithms do not think independently. They learn from examples through data. This means that both the algorithm itself and the data is trained, it is trained is crucial. If the data is incomplete, biased, or underrepresentative, then the AI system itself will learn and reproduce these flaws. One of the most serious risks of AI is the potential to produce a biased or a discriminatory outcomes. These outcomes offer mirror existing inequalities in society, such as gender or racial discrimination. And rather than correcting these problems, AI systems may unintentionally reinforce them or giving biased decision or false sense of objectivity. Bias can enter an AI system at many different stages. It can appear during data collection, where certain groups are underrepresented, or during annotation, when human leaders bring their own assumptions. Design choices made by developers and decisions taken during deployment can further amplify these biases. Um, Furthermore, AI systems do not simply reflect society, they also shape it. For example, targeted advertising often shows men and women different types of content, which means that it reinforces stereotypes about careers, hobbies, personal interest, and so on. So in this way, AI becomes both normative and performative. Also, many datasets used to train AI systems are dominated by data from specific regions, particularly Europe and North America. This lack of geodiversity means that AI systems often perform poorly when applied to people, languages, or cultures outside of these regions, leading to unfair or inaccurate results. So as key takeaways, I would like to highlight that bias occurs at every stage of AI. Personal data increases discrimination risk, and ethical reflection is essential. Having said this, keeping a note on the timing, these are the 8 recommendations from the research, which I don't know if I have time to go through each of them. Maybe I'll just highlight the most prominent ones. For example, first, expanding initiatives to reduce gender digital skills gaps beyond coding. We find it very critical. Most gender-focused digital skills programs still concentrate on coding, while gaps are actually widening in other high demands areas. Second, we need to apply gender transformative lifelong learning approaches because women face barriers and remaining in digital and technology fields throughout their lives, not just at the education stage. Having in mind these recommendations from this research, UNIDO has launched the Global Alliance on AI for Industry and Manufacturing. Next slide, please. This is where UNIDO's AM initiative plays a key role. AM Global is designed as a collaborative platform that brings together governments, industries, innovators, and development partners to advance responsible AI adoption in industry and manufacturing. It provides a space to share knowledge, build capacity, and ensure that AI-driven industrialization really supports the sustainable development goals. Next slide, please. And AIM Global has a strong potential to support gender equality in AI and Industry 4.0 by intentionally expanding access to skills networks, platforms for women. AIM can help ensure women are not just users of AI technology, but also innovators, entrepreneurs, and decision makers shaping the industrial transformation. So with having said that, the key message is simple. If women are excluded from AI and Industry 4.0, we risk reinforcing inequalities through technology. But if we act intentionally through platforms like AM Global, we can make AI a driver of inclusive, competitive, and sustainable industrial development for all. The participation of free of charge. Our community platform also provides matchmaking features, which means that you can get in touch with organizations from all around the globe. And there is also a specificated area to showcase innovations in AI, which can be replicated by other organization, companies, and regions. And with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Yes, the final slide. Thank you very much. We would like to welcome you to take part of AM Global and together to implement many initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexander. We will definitely share with the participants the links to the AM Global, to your platform, but also we will share the links to the very interesting report that you just, in the interest of time, you were not able to go very much into detail, so they can go and check all those different findings, and especially the recommendations, because those are the most important ones. And we also, what Sofia mentioned, the UNESCO, another very important report. We are going to share that with all the participants once the event is finished. So thank you, Alexander, once again for showcasing that closing these gender gaps in AI is not only a social imperative, but is equally important an economic and innovation opportunity. So that should be the driver. If we are not at least that much interested in social inequalities, at least we should think about the economic and innovation opportunity. Thank you very much. For our final speaker, we will now zoom out further to reflect on AI governance, ethics, and power dynamics at the global level. And I'm very happy that today with us we have Ivana Bartoletti, a global recognized expert in AI governance, ethics, and responsible technology. So the right lady to talk about today's topic. So our last speaker, but definitely not the least. And we are very much happy to have her on board. And her work focuses on the intersection of artificial intelligence, democracy, human rights, and gender. So very relevant for our today's peer learning webinar. And she has been deeply involved in shaping international conversations on responsible and ethical AI, something that from the presentations from Sofia and Alexander, we already acknowledge that is not only needed, but it's urgently needed. So Ivana, thanks for taking the time, and we are very glad to have you on board, and over to you.
Thank you very much, and really interesting, and thank you for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here. So we are certainly living in one of the most extraordinary technological moments in our modern history, and AI is delivering breakthroughs that were just not imaginable a decade ago. I mean, I'm thinking about healthcare, where you have a lot of AI models accelerating drug discovery and enabling faster, early, and more accurate diagnosis. And I'm thinking of sustainability, where AI is optimizing energy grids and forecasting climate risks and helping us design more efficient materials. And in our daily life, and it was mentioned earlier, AI can automate and is automated repetitive tasks, which allows people to focus on creativity and judgment and the things that we humans, we do the best. So at its best, artificial intelligence is allowing us to do things faster, to do things better, to do things at scale, and to redirect human efforts towards meaning, care, and innovation. But we can't just be optimists. I mean, optimism without honesty is naive. And today we must also be honest about the darker side and the darker patterns emerging alongside these breakthroughs. So we all have seen recent examples. And as we're talking about impact and we're talking about equalities, we just for a moment, I just want to focus on Grok. And Grok, which is churning out non-consensual sexualized images at a very alarming pace, once a minute. The technology is weaponized to digitally undress women, not only stripping away from our dignity, but also issuing a very stark warning. Speak up, even if you just exist online, and you risk being targeted. The message is clear, very chilling. The visibility and voice come at a cost, paid in humiliation, but the scandal is not just out of nowhere. A report which was out yesterday on Wired reviewed more than 50 deepfakes websites and showed how sexual deepfakes continue to get more and more sophisticated, capable, easy to access, and very dangerous for millions of women who are abused with the technology. And the article on Wired starts with this sentence: open the website of one explicit deepfake generator and you'll be presented with a menu of horrors. With just a couple of clicks, it offers you the ability to convert a single photo in an 8-second explicit video clip, inserting women into realistic-looking graphic sexual situations. So many young women are withdrawing from online spaces, but we cannot certainly accept a situation where young girls just quietly shrink themselves, leave our digital spaces, and lower their voices. We see chatbots that reproduce and normalize stereotypes about gender, race, and social roles because they're trained, as brilliantly said before me, on data that reflect historic bias. And increasingly, we are seeing AI companions. There are systems designed to stimulate intimacy, emotional support, and also affection. And many of these companions are feminized by design. They are compliant, they're sexualized, they're engineered to agree and serve rather than to challenge. I mean, just think Alexa is a feminine name. You know, we have a generation of young boys growing up in the house selling a female voice what to do, giving orders. And these systems, they do not contradict, they reinforce. They risk becoming personal echo chambers, shaping beliefs, normalizing unhealthy dynamics, and offer validation without accountability. And perhaps most troubling, we are seeing what happens when we as a society accept a bargain, put speed and scale ahead of safety. When safeguards are postponed, that women in particular are exposed to systems that are dangerous. But AI is not destiny, and we still have agency. As Unido speaker was saying earlier, you know, a lot of this can be decided, and none of this is inevitable. So the direction of artificial intelligence is not pre-written. It's shaped by design choices, incentives, governance decisions, many of which are being made right now. I am curious and personally very, very excited about what we can become with AI at our side, but we can only reap the benefits of AI if we embed trust before deployment, not after harm occurs. And this is where global conversations matter. So we have a summit in India in 2 weeks where I'll be speaking at, with its focus on impact, inclusion, and progress. But the question is no longer whether AI works, but for whom it works and at what cost. So to understand AI's impact on inequality, as it was said, we need to abandon the myth of neutrality. So we've said it earlier, AI is not neutral. Data is certainly not neutral, and AI systems learn from the world as it is, including its inequalities. And when those systems are used to make decisions about people, what we see, what we're offered, what opportunities they receive, that bias becomes infrastructure. This is why AI is a socio-technical system, not just code and models, but data, incentives, human choices, and power structures. So governance is not just bureaucracy, it is a mechanism through which we reduce this power infrastructure, we tackle them and create legitimacy. And as was mentioned earlier, this does mean to intervene across the entire life cycle, which means documented and massaging data sets properly to ensure that they are representative and interrogated. For example, when working with a data set, we will ask the questions like, where is the data coming from and why is the data there? Because when you work on a database and you decide who can be elevated to be in a database, you're making a choice. And you put in some people in a database and some people not on a database. So we have to test for bias and disparate impact, and setting limits on use cases and ensuring human oversight where decisions affect rights and dignity. Now, today is World Privacy Day, and this gives us some moments to pause. I often hear that privacy must be sacrificed to unlock the full potential of AI. And I strongly disagree with this, because privacy is not just about protecting personal data. Privacy is about autonomy, the ability to move through life without our digital traces being endlessly aggregated, clustered, and used to predict and influence our behavior. Privacy is also very deeply linked to equality. We continue to see AI systems used to monitor, categorize, and control the most vulnerable groups in our society, often in the name of efficiency. If we get privacy wrong, we get AI wrong. The good news is that this is not a zero-sum game. Privacy-enhancing technologies allow us to use data while reducing the risks. Systems can learn from information without directly seeing them or reading them. So embedding privacy into AI is not just possible, but is essential. So to close, AI governance operates at very different levels. With companies, governance is the foundation of growth. Without trust, AI does not scale. Take AI, for example, in human resources. If you use it responsibly, it can improve fairness and efficiency. But if you use it poorly, it can lock people out of opportunity and reinforce exclusion. So at the same time, workers must be supported through upskilling and transition. AI cannot be a productivity story for some and a precarity story for some others. Privacy law, human rights, consumer protection, and sector-specific legislation already affect AI. So AI does not exist in a legal vacuum, and compliance with this legislation is certainly not the ceiling, but it's the baseline. And finally, a participatory approach, which involves all the communities, workers, and users, is not idealistic, but it's good governance. So AI can break stereotypes, or it can harden them into code, and the difference is in the choices that we make now. So if you're able to govern AI responsibly, then we can make choices and build systems that expand opportunity, respect dignity, and drive progress. But if we don't, we risk automating inequality at scale. And it's, yes, of course, it is a matter of getting diversity and more women into coding and programming. But I remain firmly convinced that we need to get women and diversity in company boards where the decisions around how to do AI, what to do, how to transform are deployed. Because the future of AI and its direction is still open. And this is our responsibility, but it's also our opportunity. So this is a great time to get involved in this sector and take leadership, whichever background everyone comes from.
Thank you, Ivana, for the inspiring words. We had a very great reactions from the audience, as you were able to see, and thank you for bringing up the question of the leadership positions of women across boards and across all those different companies. That's why if we want to have these results, if we want to really contribute, it's not enough only to talk about, but also to act. And that's why we are very happy that we have women like Sofce advocating in these big companies, because this is the only way forward. We will now move on. So thank you very much for raising that question, and how everything is interconnected, because we sometimes, not only about this topic, but for many topics, when we talk about gender equality or inequalities in general, we tend to think in silos and not seeing it what horizontal really means. Horizontal is not just about making a certain policy that will go through different sectors in the country, but it is basically what you're just saying. Not only users, not only programmers, but also people who makes the decisions. We need to have the right people at the end of the day, regardless of their gender, male or female, but they're conscious what AI and ethics and governance means. So thank you very much for raising that very important question. Now we would like to move on a little bit to the questions from the audience. So maybe I will let's start in the reverse order. So Ivana, I would start with the last question. I think it's best suited for you. Says invisible bias matters more in real life systems. Which area today? So this is very, very interesting. Like for example, hiring, finance, education, healthcare. Worry you most based on your experience when it comes to biased AI being deployed without scrutiny, without taking care of it, or maybe all of them? But I will leave that.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's true. It's all of them. I mean, healthcare, for example, is quite of a troubling one, right? Because the problem with healthcare is that, for example, take heart conditions. For many, many years, we haven't studied women heart conditions. If you as a woman go to the GP, to the doctor now, and you say, "Oh, I feel unwell here," they will say you're stressed. Right, most cases. I mean, everything for women is about stress, and that tells you a lot. It says, I mean, I'm very openly saying, going through menopause, and still there is no understanding of it all. And if you think about that, is because data collection is never neutral, and so we have gathered much more information about men's health over history than women's health. So the problem here is that, whilst, for example, in human resources, education, you can massage data. You can sometimes, I worry in healthcare, because I think even if you have the social political understanding that the system has to reflect diversity, you may not have all the data, because simply we haven't studied that enough, because nobody cared about studying women in menopause until a few years ago, because it was a woman thing. You would never say that beard is a men thing, because it is a men thing, but it's universal. Everybody worries about it, and everybody worries about things and with women, even if we are the majority of the world, it's still menopause is considered a women thing. So I mean, that is what I find very worrying, and I feel that with that is even more so for example, Black women. I mean, we've had lots of stories where you can't recognize skin cancer on Black women's skins, because simply the system has been trained on white skin. So it is bias, and is also lack of data because of historic inequalities.
Yeah, recently we participated in one policy dialogue webinar. It was workshop, actually. It was in person, and we were discussing with HR people from the European Parliament, and they were asking for suggestions how they can improve gender equality when it comes to the well-being of the people in the Parliament. And one of the things that we were discussed very, very broadly was broadly. I mean, a lot of time we spent on it was exactly what you said: the menopause, the heart conditions and the data around it. But there is also another tricky side of it: how to collect data without interfering. People are getting so offensive nowadays if you ask them personal questions. So how to make the right balance between that's completely another story. But thank you very much for raising that. And Sofce, to you, a Western Balkans issue. You raised the idea that being a late adopter, or a bit delayed adopter, to put it more precisely, can be an advantage. For countries in the Western Balkans, is this a risk of importing bias system, or do you think it's an opportunity to design better frameworks from the beginning, based on
Yes.
Yeah,
it's excellent questions, and I would like to repeat my sentence, that the speed of working of the institutions, including the government and the assembly, is 20 months. When you speak about the speed of working of the business community, all things is happen in 1 month. But today we have the new tools, we have AI, and the speed of working of AI is 1 second, not 1 day. And because how is the speed of the adoption of regulation in European Union also, this is maybe for us some advantage, because you can now use all of those lessons from their regulation to implement it in our regulation in the Western Balkan. I will focus just to think about the monitoring system maybe to put monitoring system on two levels. One will be from the technical audits to implement in the information that you find on the AI platforms, and also how to implement it, the human in the loop. Every time when you use some information, you can check as a last level to see is it true or is not true. And also maybe from the technical perspective, from my experience, I use different language models to put the same questions, or I give commands maybe to one of the platform, one of the language model to write me the prompt, and I copy this prompt and I execute it in another language model. This is the way how to think, to see how to think to different models. But my recommendation is that we have enough time to create this our world.
Yeah, which, you know, as you were speaking, it reminded me of some of the good practices not related to AI, but what we had in Western Balkans many years ago when it came to corporate social responsibility. How we were really ahead in ex-Yugoslavia, and how we showcased back then that we were doing corporate social responsibility before the term even existed. So that gave me confidence that we can do similar things with AI. But of course, if we take up on board what you just mentioned, the difference in reacting, how industry is reacting versus how the institutions and policymakers are rather slow. It's good that at least in Macedonia we are facing now a situation where we are trying to do something around the IT sector and have a certain strategy, but still a lot of things needs to be done. And I think that it's also very important, as you mentioned now, reflecting on what you said, that professionals in the field like yourself should really exchange and debate on this topic, because you are the ones that can address it together with gender experts, just to bring in on board and intersectionality aspects. So thank you very much for sharing that. And maybe just one follow-up question for you, Sofia, before I ask Alexander, what values do we need to build into AI systems? It's very much connected to what you just said. This is not a asking from the start. If we want them to support, what are the most? I think that there are many different values that we should think about, but what do you think are the most important so that we have a solid product at the end that can be good?
This my conclusion. It was connected with one of the cases that explain on meeting of the management in the company or in other institution, when we discuss and we 100% trust to GDP, but it's not true. We have to ask more and more questions on every answer of the GDP and to check, is it really true? And now you can use also another software tools, because you can find now the tools that can check, is it true on ChatGPT or in another platforms. Also, you can make comparison of the results, and you can check if some of the text is produced by ChatGPT or another platforms, or it's a human produced text. There is many ways. Just want to cooperate between institution, business, etc. I will emphasize now the initiative from our Ministry of Economy that you implemented using of AI in the schools, but we don't have regulation still. What will happen? We speak about the kids, we speak about the education. There are many open questions, but the cooperation between the institution, between the NGOs, government, we must create one policy, because we must be the creator of our future.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for highlighting this. And also, UNIDO, Maria is asking Alexander, highlighted strong recommendations. Yeah, it's very powerful recommendations, but implementation is often slow. What is the biggest challenge in turning these gender responsive AI policies into real change inside organizations and institutions? Of course, based on your experience, based on on the findings of UNIDO.
Maybe I can share some internal insight with you how we are dealing this gender issue, especially within our department as UNIDO as a whole. Is that we take gender aspects very seriously, and each project has to has a component, and when it goes through this internal clearance, the reviewers really also take a deep look at how gender is a structure to the whole process, to the whole project. So we have to have a gender roadmap or strategy for each project. Each of the project activities have to have a specific component for women. If, for example, we cannot define a certain output specifically to women, for example, we have this research, at least there has to be a specific chapter tackling women issues there. So we pose very high KPIs for this area, for this important element. And we take it very seriously, and it is streamlined through each of our projects. And of course, at the end of the day, we report back, and we share what we have learned, so that other project managers and other departments within UNIDO can learn from these good practices and replicate them.
Yeah, indeed, what you talked about, the gender mainstreaming is actually gender mainstreaming, which is very, very important, and it should be done across different policies, across different processes. It's just screening and trying to make the contribution. So thank you very much for sharing the UNIDO good practice on that, and it might be very useful for other similar organizations to think about and include in their operational planning. And we have one more last question from Maya. Do you just let me to have a look at it? Having in mind that the EU AI Act just requires AI systems to avoid discriminatory outcomes, but its guidance on gender bias and is limited, almost non-existing, this process may take too long. Legislative is not keeping the pace with AI development. Maybe Ivana, you can help me with this.
Yeah, so it's not just the European AI Act, right? So we have non-discrimination legislation. So it's very important to bear that in mind. So you've got non-discrimination legislation. We have privacy law. Do not forget that fair treatment of data is very, very important. And it's been data protection authorities that have been often standing up in Europe for on this topic. And so it's really important to understand sort of the role of privacy within this. There are limits with discrimination law. If you want to know more about this, there is a study which I've done for the Council of Europe. And I can't remember the name now, but if you Google my name and Council of Europe and Rafael Xenidis, together we did a study on the limits of existing non-discrimination legislation. The European Commission now has now also clarified the intersection between the European AI Act and the GDPR in relation to using special categories of data, which is data about race, medical, something like special categories of data, very sensitive, how they can be used to check whether the system is biased or not. Because the problem is, if you don't have this data, then you can't check, because you can't check if you're blind about sort of what you're checking against. So it's possible to intervene. Just one thing I wanted to say: don't fall into the trap to believe that there is a technical solution to solve the problem of bias. There are mitigation techniques, but the problem with bias is very much of a political one. Yeah, it's very much so. If we want an output which is fair, we have to define what fairness is. This is what is important to have diverse leadership. Fairness has to be decided at leadership level, and therefore massage the data and create the parameters to achieve that output. AI on its own, even the ones that's been biased, is not going to replace the role of direction and leadership.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much for these reflections. We are getting back to the leadership, to the political exactly. Solutions for this, of course, and AI is there just as a tool at the end of the day. So thank you very much to you, Ivana, and to other speakers for all these reflections. We are now reaching the end of today's discussion, and as you pointed out very nicely at the end, AI is not just a technical system. It should be treated as not only AI, but the approach to AI and the gender inequalities as a societal one. It's shaped by choices, the values, and what we mentioned, responsibilities and leaderships. So bias in AI is not inevitable, but addressing it requires awareness, accountability, and of course, what was mentioned so many times today, collaboration across sectors. So thank you to our speakers and all participants. We had a great discussion with our participants for being part of this peer learning conversation. I need to pass on a message from my team that we will be sharing the presentations, and please fill in the evaluation form of the webinar. It means a lot to us to get to know your feedback so that we can improve and address some other interesting topics in the future. So thank you again, and I wish you a great day ahead, and we will catch up on another peer learning webinar. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.